I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me. The energy in the room is so positive and beautiful, so I love to be here. I love to be here with you. And I'm going to share 3 things with you today. So yes, I am the author of Shine on Loose Bellies, and here it is. And I'm going to share with you, number 1, the origin story of the book. So things from my life that helped me write the book. Number 2 tips for your own writing, whether you're writing a poem or writing song lyrics or writing an email or an assignment, 2 tips that'll help you with your own writing. And number 3, the journey that the book takes from being just a file on my computer to being the finished, beautiful book with a nice cover and everything like that. Okay, so 3 things. And I'm going to show you, well, you can see, we have a soccer ball and then some computer coding. The code is in Scratch. Has anybody used Scratch? Just raise your hand for me. Oh, cool, okay. Scratch is a computer language that's online that you can go play around with. And of course, football. So this is a picture of Luz, my main character. Oh, I clicked it and it moved. Okay, I won't touch the screen. Luz has a past represented by football and the soccer ball, and then she has a future represented by coding and robotics. So I'm gonna read to you, let's click to the next slide. I'm gonna read to you the very beginning of the book, chapter 1, and you'll get a little taste of why soccer is in Luz's past. All right, chapter 1. So, there's before it happened, before I learned to use crutches, before I needed physical therapy, before. Welcome to after. I grab a trash bag that's almost as tall as I am. Lawn and leaf, the bag says. Perfect for raking out the whole soccer section of my closet. Perfect for cleaning out before. Soccer shoes into the bag. Shin guards into the bag. White and blue uniforms, the bag. 3 trophies, 1 for being the top scorer in the whole Tri-Cities Junior League, bag. I can't look at this stuff anymore. Then there's the ball. Am I keeping it? No way. Well, no. Okay, fine. I can't let go of my soccer ball just yet. I'm not supposed to dribble it in the house, but I pop it into the air with the toe of my shoe and bounce it on my good knee. The knee that bends easy as a slinky, clean joint, perfect tendons. I'm thankful for one healthy knee, really, I am. But I'm sad too. I used to have 2 of them. I shove the ball to the very back of my closet behind a wall of cardboard bricks I used to make forts with. Now, for the posters of my soccer heroes. I yank out each pushpin. Down falls Abby Wambach, top scorer of the U.S. women's team. Down goes the World Cup team photo, every neck with a gold medal, and Captain Megan Rapinoe raising the trophy high. I crumple the posters into big wads and stuff them into the trash bag. Mom says to stop looking back, so here I am trying, but it's hard to forget. Sometimes I flash into the past. A memory will photobomb my brain, like that run, that last day on the soccer field run. It plays over and over in my head, a YouTube video on continuous autoplay. Legs pumping, feet churning up the grass, my body a missile speeding toward the goal. I know the accident happened, obviously, but at the same time, it's like I'm still running. The goal getting closer and Mom cheering in the stands, Dad shouting, "Pour it on," which makes me run even faster. Some me kept on running, but I couldn't go with her. It's like she went on without me to where I was supposed to go. Now we'll never find each other. Okay, so that's the first page and a half of Shine on Loose Bellies. And you can see that she's been injured and she has to start a new chapter. She thought she was an athlete, but now who is she going to be? You know, she thought, I'm a soccer player. That's my friend group. That's my parents' friends even. But now I'm going to be someone else. But who's that going to be? So let me give you a little hint as to who that is going to be. I'm going to read another little section here. So Luz went to soccer in the morning at school, and she's on the bench. And being on the bench is no fun. So she finally leaves class, and she says, I'm about to turn left, but a thumping noise makes me turn right. The last room's door is propped open, and not with a wooden wedge or a brick, but an R2-D2 stands at the door, its red light glowing. Okay, I'll bite. The thumping noise continues, and I step toward the room. At the doorway, I poke my head in, hoping to get a peek without being noticed. The kids aren't sitting at desks. They're walking around. They seem tall, maybe 8th graders. Some carry Lego bricks and gears in their hands. Some lean over a couple of computers on the back wall. A blue mat stretches across the floor, and 2 robots roll toward a line of ping pong balls. I forget to hide and step right into the room, my eyes fixed on the rolling robots. The thumping I heard was their metal arms hitting the mat, trying to trap a ping pong ball. So soon, Luz walks into the room, and a woman with close-cropped hair and multicolored dress sweeps toward me. Well, hello, can I help you? I don't want to say that I'm lost. I don't want to say that I'm running away from what used to be my favorite class, soccer. I start talking, even though my mind is a blank screen. I was just, think, what is this class? Freeman takes note of my hall pass before answering. Robotics. Robotics 2, actually. It looks seriously cool. So this is Luz's part 2. She starts out as an athlete, but now that she's injured, she's going to learn robotics and computer programming. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Miss Annalisa will help us. Oh, so I told you I would tell you about the origin story of this book. So this man is my dad, and he was born in Guatemala. Has anyone been to Guatemala, or do you know anything? Yes, yay, Guatemala, Chapin, okay. So he also speaks Espanol. Raise your hand if you speak Espanol. Awesome, okay, a little bit. Okay, I'm like you. So if you are bilingual, you have a superpower. It is awesome. Your brain has all kinds of extra connections that monolingual speakers don't have. I learned some Espanol, pero que lástima, I didn't become fluent because my dad was really busy learning English when he came to this country. Now this is my mom, and she was born in the United States from basically British ancestors. So she book learned Spanish, but she still knows way more than I do. So they got married, and there's me. I'm about 6 or 7. And so I am a mixed kid. So I have 2 cultures in my life, 2 sets of food and kinds of music. And this has also turned out to be a superpower. I thought it was kind of weird when I was young to be a mixed kid. I felt kind of out of place when I was at my mom's family. I was like, you guys realize I'm Latina, right? And then I'm at my Latina family, and they're like, how come you don't know how to speak Espanol? And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. So it seemed like a troubling thing, but now I realize it's actually a rich, beautiful thing to have a window into 2 different worlds and not just one. So Luz and I share this cultural heritage, and my dad was a soccer coach. He taught high school, and he coached the high school team, and he also coached football, right, in Guatemala. So I took the soccer parts of the book from my experiences with my dad. Now, the computer parts came from friends that I had when I was exactly your age, when computers started to be in school for the first time, and we had a lot of fun trying to make the computer do stuff. So those are the kinds of things that I put into this book. Okay, let's go to the next slide, and I'll show you one more thing. So I told you that other slide was my family, right? My dad, my mom, and me. I was wrong about that. It turns out that there's someone else in my family. And this is me, I'm on your left, and then the other woman is my half-sister. And I did not know she existed, and neither did my dad, so we share a dad. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool to put that into the book? So I'm gonna read you one last little bit here about the moment when Luz learns that she too has a half-sister. So her dad is pretty nervous about telling her, like this news is gonna rock her world. So she says, what's going on? You know, everyone's acting weird. Luz, says Dad, we're going to have a visitor. Not a visitor, Emilio, Mom says quietly. Right, says Dad, of course, no, not a visitor. He tries again. We're going to have a child. A girl. A baby, I say? I never expected this. Mom and Dad tried to get pregnant years ago, but I hadn't heard them talk about it recently. No, says Dad, not a baby, no. A la gran. He is running out of patience with himself. Luz, Mom starts. In Guatemala, there's no, says Dad, I should say it. He takes a deep breath. I have a daughter. I blink. Of course he has a daughter. I'm his daughter. Dad sees that I don't understand because he leans forward and speaks slowly. I have a daughter in Guatemala. What? Her name is Solana, he says. The words sit like the shreds of cheese on top of my chili, not sinking in. She's 13. Older than me? I do some math in my head. I'm 11, so she must have been born just before my parents got married. How did we never hear of her? I find my voice. How did this happen? Well, Dad halts and his face reddens by 2 shades. No, I mean, like, why didn't we see her on our trip to Guatemala? Why haven't I met her? You're not her mom? I look at Mom as I say this, wishing I hadn't asked. And how do you know that she's like yours? Mom says, they've done a DNA test and it's true. Solana is your father's child. Dad's eyes meet mine and I read an apology there. I didn't know her about her myself, Luz. Her mother and I, we met about a year before I met your mother. When we broke up, I didn't know she was pregnant. I never saw her again, and she never told me. She raised Solana on her own. I don't know what to feel. My heart is melting for this girl who grew up without a dad, or at least without my dad, or I guess I should say our dad. Okay, so that's a little piece of that. So I took, again, a piece of my real life and I put it in the book. Okay, now I need your help to answer 3 questions. Let's go to the next slide. So, there we go. That's me with my half-sister. Her name's Azucena, and the book is dedicated to Azucena. So I need you to give me a thumbs up if you think this is true, and a thumbs down if you think it's false. Are you ready? Okay. I met my half-sister when we were children. What do you think? Okay, this is false. Wah, wah, wah. You got it right, okay. So I met her when I was 36 years old. All right, let's go to number 2. This is a picture of Stephen Hawking, a famous physicist. So what do you think, true or false? I researched electronics, radio, and computers to write this book. This is true. Good job. So yes, there's a lot of computer in this book, but there's also some other things, and I had so much fun researching the science for this book, actually. Okay, number 3. My son coded Luce's game in Scratch, the language of the computer game. What do you think, true or false? And this is a picture of my real son. He's like, I'm guessing. This is true. So I'm very thankful to my son because I did learn a little bit of Scratch, but I quickly realized that to program a whole game was going to be tricky. And guess what? You are going to get a bookmark before you leave today with a QR code, and the QR code will take you to the game that Luce made, and you can see the code that she actually wrote. Well, my son wrote for Luce. Yeah. Okay, good. So yes, we'll go to the next slide. So I told you about the origin story, and now we're going to talk about writing, which I love to do, but I have to tell you, writing doesn't get easier, even if you're a published author. So I still have to follow 2 pieces of advice that I'm going to give you that helped me go from this, and you'll see that this is my writing desk, my computer. Sometimes I take it outside. You'll see I make lists, I consult books about writing, I have my tea, and I have to have a Totoro next to me to write well, kind of my mascot and my panda. And then all those drafts, you see printouts and printouts and printouts of the very many versions of the book that I wrote. Okay, so how do I go from that to, next slide, thank you, the book. Okay, so to write all of this, which is about 300 pages or 60,000 words, I have to do 2 things. Next slide, thank you. There they are, yes. So number 1, be willing to write badly. And I think maybe your teachers are saying, no, don't tell them that. Don't tell them to write badly. But here's what happens. When I sit down to write, if I'm so petrified that I'm going to write badly and get things wrong and like not capitalize stuff and not spell things right, and maybe my sentence is really boring, if I put that pressure on myself, I never write anything. And then I'm at the blank screen and I just freeze. So I have to be willing to write badly, like take the pressure off, just put something on the page, because number 2 is going to come along and I can revise. I can make it better. But if I have nothing to work with, how can I make it? Like I have to just throw some clay on the table before I can sculpt it into something beautiful. So I have to do this even now when I write. I was in my hotel room this morning telling myself the same thing. It's okay, just write something. It doesn't have to be perfect because I'm going to revise. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So I want to give you an example, 3 examples of changes that I make. So when I say I revise, like, well, what do you mean? What do you do? I will take a sentence that's boring and try to make it blingy. And blingy is now a word, okay? You and I, we just made it up, okay? So here's a sentence. I want to forget about stuff. So this is something in the book that happens. Luce has a bad day. She's sick of thinking about all the problems that are cropping up. She says, I just want to forget stuff. When I revise, I like to use figures of speech like similes, personification, and so I changed that. So now it says in the book, and when you read the book, you'll find this sentence. If my brain were a dump truck, I would raise the dump bed high and let a bunch of stuff slide out. And you've probably had a day like this where you just wish you could kind of like push a button and get rid of everything. Sentence 2. Memories intrude on my thoughts. And you already heard me read the revised sentence, didn't you? A memory will photobomb my brain. Photobomb is so much more exciting than like intrude. So part of my revision is finding active verbs. action words that are more flashy and fun and energetic. Number 3, it's starting to be spring already. And I changed that to spring is sneaking up on us. It's more fun if spring is like a person who can sneak up on us, right? So metaphor, strong verbs, those are the kinds of revisions that I make, and it makes the book so much more fun to read, I hope, which you can tell me. Okay, so next. 3 more true-false questions that you'll help me with, okay? This is my cat Zoe. So what do you think? Now you're just guessing, but it took me 1 year to write this book. True or false? This is true. Does that sound like a long time? You know what? It took me 6 years to write my first book. So this was so much faster. I will tell you though, I wasn't typing every single day. That's not how the year went. The year went like this. In, summer, I started thinking about a character and thinking about what problems she has and what adventures she could have. And then in the next month or so, I started writing out some ideas. And in the next month or so, I started writing some scenes. And finally, we sold the book with like 10 chapters written. And then came the pandemic. And in March, we went to spring break, because I teach at a school, and we never came back. And you may have had something similar. Well, when we didn't come back, this was great news for my book. It was very bad news for a lot of other reasons. But I was trying to write the book, and I kept getting distracted. And so almost a year had gone by, but since the pandemic came, everything was canceled, and I could just concentrate on writing. And I finished the book in like May of 2020. So that's how it goes. I'm not just writing all the time, but I go through stages of like daydreaming and then, drafting and finally writing. So thank you, pandemic, for helping us get this book. Okay, number 2. True or false? I wrote the first chapter of my first book last. Does that sound weird? And yet, maybe? This is true. So why did I do that? Why would you write backwards, right? I bet you have an idea, but I'm going to tell you. I wrote the last chapter, and I realized, now I understand the whole book. Now I understand the character. Now I have her voice in my head. Now I know what should be first. And you can actually use this when you write paragraphs, when you write essays, because when you get to the end of your paragraph, suddenly you realize, well, now I know what it's about. Now I can write an awesome opening. Maybe you want your topic sentence to be first, just like my chapter needs to be first, but you might not realize what it should say until you get to the end. So this is a trick you can try, that take your concluding sentence and paste it at the top. Of course, then you have to write a new concluding sentence, but I found out that this really works well for me. And you can see, again, all the drafts that it took me to write the book. Okay, number 3, true or false? I wrote without knowing the book's major events first. What do you think? This is false. Wow. I found out that I didn't want to spend 6 years writing this book. So this book, I decided to make it myself an outline. And I have to say, I don't like outlining. I would rather just start writing, but 300 pages is too many to not know where you're going. You need a bit of a roadmap. You need to know, actually, even if you're writing 5 pages or 1 page, it helps to know, what am I definitely gonna say? And so I made myself a list, and it wasn't real fancy, but I made a list. I definitely want her to meet her half-sister. I definitely want her to be coding in Scratch. I definitely want her to try to get into the robotics class at school. I definitely want her to meet Mr. Mack across the street, who is like kind of a guy who retired from Texas Instruments and knows all about electronics and stuff. And then I was able to write the book way faster. So a list or a way to organize your ideas is a really efficient way to start your writing. Okay, next. Now, how a story becomes a book. So I told you the origin story. I gave you some advice about writing. And so for my last trick, our last activity is I want to show you how a book goes from just being a file on my computer to this beautiful actual object that you get to hold and read. And teachers, I wonder if you could select 7 volunteers for me who can come and hold. All you have to do is hold a card, okay, and say one line. You will have one line to say. Okay, thank you. Come right up by me here. I'm going to have you stand next to the podium. All right, I'm going to give you that one. You're number 1. And number 2, I'm going to give you this one. Okay. And I'm going to give you this one. And this one. Good. And this one. I think, okay. And I just only need one more. One more. Oh, here's the one more. Excellent. Thank you. All right. Are you ready? I'm going to tell them their line that they need to say. I'm going to bring you. This is an actual chapter from my book when I was working on it and typing it. And when I come to you, you're going to say, you need to revise. Okay? Except Mr. 7, you won't have to say it, sorry. But that's your line. Are you ready? You need to revise? That's your line. Okay, so the first thing I do is I write my story. And then I take it to the critique friend. That's what this card says. And the critique friend is like someone who also likes to write. And so I give them feedback, they give me feedback. We have like a little writing club. And so I take it to my critique friend and I say, isn't it perfect? Isn't my story perfect?
You need to revise.
Oh, say it again.
You need to revise.
Oh, yeah, I guess I do. And you know what? All the color, you might be able to tell there's color on this paper. The color was written by my critique friend telling me suggestions. So thank you, critique friend. And maybe my ego is a little bruised, like, oh man, but I want it to be good. I want the story to be good, so thank you. All right, so then I take it to my agent. And I say, agent, I have my book all finished. Isn't it perfect?
You need to revise.
Oh, darn. So even now, I'm still revising? Yes. And with my agent, I rewrite the book at least like 1 or 2 times, all 300 pages. But then we sell the book to a publisher. And at the publisher, lots of people work there, and one is the editor. And the editor, I take the book to her and I say, editor, isn't the book perfect now?
You need to revise.
Oh, she's right though, because we want to make the book as great as it can be so that you readers will enjoy it more and more. So thank you, editor, even though I thought it was perfect. Okay, fine. So I revise again. And then the editor sends it over to the copy editor. And the copy editor is a person who will, actually in this book, sent me 300 changes that maybe I would make. So I took it to the copy editor and said, isn't it perfect?
You need to revise.
Yeah. So 300 changes were going to be made at that point. So now it must be perfect, right? Of course. So when it goes to the proofreader, I say, now it's perfect, right?
You need to revise.
Oh. But yes, even more. And the proofreader is fixing little tiny things like commas, right? And I thought I was good at commas because I'm an English teacher, but no. The proofreader found, like 50 more commas. So thank you, because we want the book to be awesome. All right, so then it goes to the sensitivity reader, and I say, isn't it perfect? You need to revise.
You need to revise.
That's right, you need to revise. So what is a sensitivity reader? I'll tell you. In my first book, for example, I had a character who was black. I had a character with autism. And of course I have a lot of Latino characters. Yes, and so the sensitivity reader makes sure that I'm not saying something kind of clueless, kind of making a mistake and being offensive by accident. The sensitivity reader saves me from doing something stupid in the book, by accidentally offending someone really badly. So I really appreciate that person. And the last person, the book is all finished inside, but this is the design team. And let me show you what the design team does. They're super special. They hire an artist to make this beautiful cover. They decide what the font will be. They decide what color this will be inside and what color this little yellow page will be. They decide the flaps, what it's going to say on the flaps. So they have a big, big job to make the book a beautiful object, something that you enjoy holding, enjoy reading, and looking at, and hopefully will grab off the shelf. So the design team is muy importante. Thank you very much. And I want to give each of our volunteers a sticker for helping me. So thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for helping me.
Thank you.
And I'll take your card. Okay. Dun, dun, dun.
Stickers, I got 2.
Yeah. Oh, you did? Oops, that's fine. You can share it with a friend if you got to. There you go. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Oops, I'm dropping. There we go. Thank you. There you go. Okay. So now you know how a book goes from a manuscript on my computer to a published book. And we may have time for a few questions from you. Okay. Yeah, we do. Ask me a question about writing, about books. Ooh. Yes?
What was the picture taken? Going with your family?
Oh, where was the picture with my family taken? It was in the hallway of my uncle's house because he wanted to be a photographer, and so he practiced on us. And it turned out. Yes, sir. Did my dad ever win a championship? He did win district, which was, for the high school, that's pretty good. Yeah. They went to regionals and then, it was really tough after that. Yeah. Yes?
Do you know any Spanish words?
Sí, por supuesto. Pero no, I have trouble conjugating in the past tense. For me, Spanish happens in the now. It's in present tense. Yes?
What did you do when you met your sister?
Oh, what did I do when I met my sister? Yeah, well, I went to Guatemala, and she was there, and she had already met my dad, so that happened already. But you know what? We just looked into each other's eyes and felt very happy, very comfortable, and we hugged, and then we had a problem because she only speaks Espanol and I only speak English pretty much. So we try to use Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp to stay in touch, but it's really hard. I have trouble, saying complicated things to her in Espanol. Well, we do have Google Translate. And in the book, I have the girls use Google Translate when they are first trying to talk to each other because they can't speak together. And what's interesting in the book is that the father, their shared father, speaks both languages, right? So he can say a joke to the sister, and the sister laughs and understands in Spanish, and then Luz, the main character, is like, what are they saying? Are they talking about me? Don't you always worry about that? Like, are they laughing at me? And so it's hard to be sisters in two languages. In fact, though, both sisters know computer coding. So their first language they share is computer language. And then later they learn each other's actual spoken language. So, yeah. I love my sister. It turns out she's a really beautiful and cool person. Yes? Was I ever going to give up when I was writing?
Did you ever want to give up?
Oh, did I ever want to give up? Oh, I think we're okay. Yes. So, a good question. A book is a big, long project. So, sometimes, yeah. There were times that I felt, this book is never going to get finished. Or I felt, I don't know what should happen next. I hope I didn't really plan to totally give up, because lots of people were counting on me to write the book. Okay. We're looking for something. So if you have any big project, of course, there are going to be times that you think it's not going well. And so when that happens, or if I have what's called writer's block, like I just don't know what to write, I usually try to write something totally different. Like maybe I'll write a poem, or maybe I'll take a walk and try to get out of my head a little bit and come back. And then I feel like fresh again. Okay, yes, and then,
So, like, did you have, like, a lot of people judging you and, like, saying that you couldn't do it?
oh, so I think most writers do have people say, you're not going to be able to do this. You're not going to be able to write a book. And you have to really just ignore those voices, because you have a story to tell. And that's true for all of us, whether you write a book or not. Maybe you write comics. Maybe you have a podcast. Or maybe you just write small things to yourself that no one will ever see. But you do have a story to tell. There's something particular that you bring, that you see the world in a certain way that's different from any other person. And so I tried to tell those voices, no, I will do it, because I want to tell my story. And I have something to say as much as anybody, so why shouldn't I say it? It may not get published, that's okay, but I can still tell my story. Yes?
You play soccer?
Did I play soccer? I had played a little, but I was never on like the varsity team or, in a big way. But we played in the yard. I like to be the goalie and like lunge for the ball, and my dad would practice his, shots that way. Yeah. So, and we would watch on TV a lot. My dad could explain to me like the strategy and, what each position was and what they were doing. So I have a more deep understanding of the game, than I would if he with that. Not too much is in the book of the strategy, because it's hard to make that sound interesting, but a little bit. And the Maradona spin, does anyone know that defensive move? The Maradona spin. Well, you can find it on YouTube, and Luz teaches it to someone in the book. It's a cool move where you fake out yeah. Yes?
Some of the story, is it true?
So some of the story is true. Pieces are brought from my real life, but the main storyline is all fictional. That a girl would come to the United States happens a lot, but the sister is a citizen because of her father, so that makes it a lot easier than for so many people. But that's sort of real. My sister was able to come, but not to live, so she comes to visit. So the sister's kind of real, kind of not. And you know what? All the electronics and all the, that came from my grandfather's wood shop. So my grandfather had this little room, and if you go in, it was kind of like a big closet. It was filled with tools, and there was a pegboard where they all would hang. And there was this very heavy-looking thing. It turns out it's a clamp on a workbench. And piles of sawdust everywhere, because he was like building things with wood. And when I stepped in that room, I would smell the sawdust and I would think, oh, anything can be made in this room. Like anything could be built and created. It's like a maker space, as they say now, right? And so I put that real thing into the book, even though it's somebody's garage instead of a wood shop. Yes? What gave me the idea to make this book? So many things, but yes, my grandfather's wood shop, my experiences with coding with friends, in the 1980s and 90s, you might have a computer like an Apple II Plus or a Commodore 64 or a TRS-80, and if those sound like dinosaurs, they are. But you would make a program where your name would scroll on the screen a million times or something like that. So those are the kinds of programs we wrote back then. It was pretty simple. Yes?
What did your son do?
What did my son do? So my son has a degree in computer gaming. Did you know you can go to college and get a degree in gaming? You can. University of Texas at Dallas, has this degree. And because of that, he did know some coding, and he also knew how games should work, like game dynamics. How do you make it so people keep wanting to play the game, and so on. So he helped me a lot figure out what kind of game should Luce do. Luce wants to do a big game project so she can get into the robotics class, and so she wants to write some cool code, but I needed my son's help too, because my coding skills weren't as fast as my writing skills. Yes?
What does the game look like?
What does the game look like? You're gonna have to go see on your QR code or on my website. You can Google my name, which is hard to spell, but it'll be on your book. And that way you can see. But it has a little robot, and I mean, in Scratch you have to use their graphics, and you'll see how basically you have a robot, but as you make mistakes in the game, the robot gets put in the recycle bin, and so you want to keep the robot alive. You have to keep doing right answers. You'll see. Yeah. How are we with time? Should I let? 2:09. 2:09. Okay, we could do a couple more questions. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Now my sister is in her 50s, like maybe 55 or so. Yeah. And I'm a little younger. I'm the younger sister now. I thought I was the only child, but now I'm a younger sister. Yes?
When was your first made?
Oh, wait, say again?
When was your first book made?
Oh, my first book, when was it made? It was made in 2019. And it's called The Other Half of Happy. And it might be in your library or maybe your city library. Yeah. And it's about Kihana, who is bicultural and who is really annoyed because she's named after Don Quixote, who is Spain's most famous loser, she says. And actually Don Quixote is a really important literary figure, but that's her idea, is like, why did you name me after this guy? But she spends most of the book rejecting her heritage because she thinks she's happy being half, and she is wrong. Okay, yes?
How many books have you written?
How many books have I written? So The Other Half of Happy and Shine on Loose Veils are my 2 middle grade novels. And then I wrote a book of poems that was published actually right here in San Antonio by St. Mary's University. They have a little press. But I'll tell you what, publishing poetry is a lot different than publishing a novel because there's just not as many people reading poetry. Yes. Oh, yeah, okay. Yes. You, red shirt, yes. What is, a poem. You know what, again, on my website you can read some of my poems, but the most important poem I ever wrote was called Guatemala. And the first line is, Guatemala was a place inside my closet. And from that line, really, I wrote the entire book, The Other Half of Happy, because it really was about, the poem was about a girl who gets a huipil, which is like a native weaving tunic dress thing, and she stuffs it in her closet, and she doesn't want to wear it because no one else is wearing those, right? Nobody's wearing, like a Guatemalan weaving to school. So I put that in my first book, and that poem really made me realize I had so much more to say about Guatemala being in my closet, which you can tell is a metaphor, right, for shoving that part of myself away and how I needed to get it out and celebrate it instead of being embarrassed about it. And that turned into a whole novel. So I think that's like the most important poem I ever wrote, because it turned into a book. Yeah. Do we have time for one more question? Okay. Yes?
So when your dad was teaching soccer, did they win any games?
Oh, when my dad was teaching soccer, did they win any games? They did. They won a lot. They were at Northside High School in Fort Worth, and they became known as a really hard team to beat. And like I said, they went to district a couple times. I think they made it to regionals once, too. Yeah. Yes?
What inspired you to do books?
What inspired me to write books?
Yeah.
I have to say reading. Like, I hope you have stumbled on one book or even one poem, song lyric, quote that touched you, because that's what writers really want to do. They want to inspire you, right? And they want to create a story that you love to live in, almost like it's a movie in your head as you're reading. And so when I had experiences like that as a reader, and I would be like, oh my goodness, this author, she knows my heart. How did she do that? I had experiences like that. And I thought, okay, I want to do that too. Because it would be fun to tell stories and to create that experience for readers. Yeah. So reading turned me into a writer, just seeing the magic of words. Yeah, that's the main thing that inspired books. Yes?
Did your brother and your sister meet too?
I don't have a brother, only a sister, just a half-sister and me. Yeah. And reading, I want to say, tomorrow there is a book festival, Saturday, right? And it's free, and you can meet lots of authors like me, and some of them are reading picture books, and some of them are talking about grown-up adult books. Some are doing young adult, comic, graphic novels. So if you haven't fallen in love with a book yet, tomorrow could be the day. Yes. Okay. Does someone need to? We're good. Okay. I've enjoyed being with you so much, and I hope you love the book. And you can tell me on social media if you do. Thank you.